I stood at my mailbox on Elm Street in Austin, still wearing my programming clothes from another long day debugging code at the software company where I worked as a senior engineer. My golden retriever Charlie wagged his tail beside me as I sorted through the usual bills and advertisements. Then I saw it. A certified letter with a return address that made my blood run cold. Phoenix, Arizona. Robert and Linda Matthews. My parents. The same people who had not spoken to me in 8 years. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope, expecting maybe an apology or some family emergency. Instead, I found something that hit me like a punch to the gut. They were demanding I take custody of my younger sister Brooke's newborn daughter because Brooke had died in a car accident and her wealthy husband refused responsibility. No condolences for my loss, no apology for their years of silence. Just a cold ultimatum delivered like a business transaction. Take the baby or she goes to foster care. Back in my minimalist apartment, I collapsed onto my leather couch, while Charlie pressed his warm body against my legs, sensing my distress. The letter lay crumpled on my coffee table as 8 years of painful memories crashed over me like a tidal wave. Growing up in suburban Phoenix, I had been the responsible older child who could never do anything right, while Brooke was the golden princess who received endless praise for breathing. When I brought home straight A's in high school, my father Robert would grunt and ask why I had not taken harder classes. When Brooke scraped by with C's, my mother Linda would celebrate her effort and take her shopping for new clothes as a reward. The favoritism became impossible to ignore during college applications. My parents refused to contribute a single dollar toward my education at Arizona State University, claiming they needed to save money for important things. 2 years later, they happily wrote a check for $60,000 so Brooke could attend a prestigious private college in California where she studied communications and spent most of her time building her social media following. I worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for my computer science degree, living on ramen noodles and determination, while Brooke posted photos of expensive dinners funded by our parents. After graduation, I landed a good job with a tech startup in Austin and bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Brooke became an Instagram influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers documenting her glamorous lifestyle in Dallas after marrying Marcus Wellington, a wealthy real estate developer 15 years her senior. I'd only met Marcus twice at family gatherings, finding him arrogant and controlling, but Brooke seemed happy with his money and status. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving dinner 8 years ago at my parents' house in Phoenix. Robert spent the entire meal bragging about Brooke's latest brand partnerships, while Linda showed everyone photos of the expensive jewelry Marcus had bought her. When I tried to share news about my recent promotion, my father interrupted to take another call from Brooke, who was vacationing in Europe. Something inside me snapped, and I finally confronted them about the obvious favoritism that had poisoned my childhood. The argument that followed was nuclear. My parents accused me of being jealous and immature, unable to be happy for my sister's success. They claimed I was selfish for wanting attention and said I needed to grow up and stop competing with Brooke. When I pointed out specific examples of their differential treatment, they dismissed my feelings as oversensitivity and told me I was remembering things wrong. The conversation ended with Robert telling me I was no longer welcome in their home if I could not support my sister properly. I left that night and never returned. Despite my attempts to reach out over the following months, my parents maintained their silence. Birthday cards went unanswered. Christmas gifts were returned unopened. Eventually, I stopped trying and focused on building my own life. I adopted Charlie from a rescue shelter, earned several promotions at work, and created a stable, peaceful existence free from their toxic dynamics. Now, this letter revealed that Brooke had died 3 weeks ago in a car accident in Dallas, leaving behind a 2-month-old daughter named Emma. Marcus claimed the baby was not his biological child, though DNA tests were still pending. My parents, now living in a retirement community in Phoenix, insisted they were too old to raise a child and had tracked down my address through a mutual family friend. The deadline was brutal in its simplicity. Respond within 1 week, or baby Emma would enter the state foster care system. But as I reached the bottom of the envelope, my fingers found something unexpected. A second page had been stuck to the inside, almost hidden from view. This one was different from the typed business letter from my parents. Written in Brooke's familiar handwriting, it was a personal note addressed to me specifically. The words made my heart race as I read them. Warren, if you are reading this, then something terrible has happened to me. Please protect Emma from the truth about Marcus. There is a safety deposit box key hidden in my jewelry case. You are the only person I trust to keep her safe. I am so sorry for everything our parents did to you. You deserve so much better. I called in sick to work the next morning and drove 4 hours straight to Dallas, my mind spinning with questions about Brooke's cryptic warning. Charlie rode shotgun, providing silent comfort as I navigated heavy traffic on Interstate 35. The County Family Services office was located in a gray concrete building that looked as depressing as it felt inside. Social worker Jessica Martinez, a kind woman in her 40s with tired eyes, led me through a maze of hallways to a small room where baby Emma was sleeping in a portable crib. The moment I saw her, something shifted inside my chest. She was tiny and perfect, with wispy brown hair and delicate features that reminded me of Brooke as a baby. But when Emma opened her eyes and looked at me, I gasped in recognition. She had the same distinctive emerald green eyes that I saw in the mirror every morning, inherited from our grandfather on my mother's side. Neither Brooke nor Marcus had green eyes. Brooke's were brown like our parents, and Marcus had cold blue eyes that matched his personality. Jessica explained the situation while I held Emma for the first time, feeling an unexpected surge of protectiveness. Marcus had hired an expensive legal team to prove he was not the biological father and had no obligation to support the child. He had moved out of the luxury apartment he shared with Brooke and was pressuring the state to place Emma in foster care as quickly as possible. The social services system was overwhelmed, and Jessica warned that Emma would likely be placed with a family several hundred miles away, making visits nearly impossible. After leaving the office, I drove to Brooke's apartment complex in an upscale area of North Dallas. The building featured a security gate and marble lobby that screamed expensive. Using the key Jessica had given me, I entered the 3-bedroom apartment that felt like a magazine spread. Everything was pristine and coordinated, from the white leather furniture to the crystal chandeliers. But something felt hollow about the space, as if it had never been truly lived in. I found Brooke's bedroom and began searching for clues about her final months. Hidden beneath a stack of designer handbags in her walk-in closet, I discovered a leather-bound journal filled with her handwriting. The entries from her pregnancy painted a picture of fear and isolation that broke my heart. Brooke wrote about how Marcus had become cold and distant after she announced her pregnancy, questioning whether the baby was really his, and making cruel comments about her changing body. The journal entries became increasingly desperate as Brooke described Marcus's threats to divorce her and leave her with nothing if she could not prove the baby's parentage. She had secretly begun recording their conversations on her phone, capturing audio of Marcus saying things like, "This baby will ruin everything we have built," and threatening to destroy her financially if she tried to take any of his assets. Reading her words, I realized my sister had been trapped in an abusive marriage with no one to turn to for help. I was still reading when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Marcus Wellington appeared in the bedroom doorway, looking exactly as I remembered him from family gatherings. He was tall and silver-haired, wearing an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. His cold blue eyes surveyed me with obvious displeasure as he straightened his silk tie. "Warren Matthews," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "I heard you were in town stirring up trouble. I suppose your parents sent you to claim that baby." He stepped into the room, his presence filling the space with tension. "Let me save you some time and effort." Brooke was unstable during her pregnancy, probably having affairs with multiple men. That child could belong to anyone. I stood up slowly, keeping Brooke's journal behind my back. "The social worker says you are fighting pretty hard to prove you are not the father. Why would you care so much if you are not worried about something?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I will not be trapped by some gold digger's scheme to steal my money. Brooke thought she could trick me with a pregnancy, but I am smarter than that." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. "I am prepared to offer you $50,000 in cash to take that baby and disappear. No lawyers, no custody battles, no contact with my family ever again." The casual way he talked about Emma, as if she were a problem to be solved rather than an innocent child, made my blood boil. "She is not for sale, Marcus, and she is my niece, whether you want to acknowledge that or not." His friendly facade dropped, completely revealing the cruel man Brooke had written about in her journal. "You have no idea what you are getting yourself into, boy. I have connections throughout this city. Judges, police officers, politicians. If you try to fight me for custody of that bastard child, I will destroy you in ways you cannot imagine." After Marcus left, I continued searching the apartment with new urgency. In Brooke's home office, I found a small hidden camera disguised as a decorative picture frame on her bookshelf. When I connected it to her laptop, I discovered hours of footage from the weeks before her death. Most of it showed routine activities, but one video from 2 days before the accident made my hands shake. The footage showed Marcus and Brooke arguing violently in their living room. She was holding Emma, trying to protect the baby, while Marcus shouted accusations about paternity and money. The argument escalated until Marcus shoved Brooke hard, causing her to stumble backward with Emma in her arms. The camera angle captured Marcus's face clearly as he stepped forward with his fist raised, but then the video cut off abruptly. In the parking garage footage from the same day, I could see Marcus's silver Porsche with suspicious damage to the front bumper and headlight. The timestamp showed he had returned home just hours after Brooke's fatal accident on the Dallas North Tollway. My sister had not died in a random car crash. She had been murdered, and Marcus had made it look like an accident. I spent that night in a hotel room near the airport, Emma sleeping peacefully in a portable crib I had purchased from a 24-hour store. Unable to sleep, I researched Marcus Wellington online and discovered he owned one of the largest commercial real estate companies in Texas, with developments throughout the Southwest. His social media profiles showed a carefully crafted image of success and philanthropy, but I noticed something troubling. In the past 5 years, 3 other women connected to Marcus had died in apparent accidents, including a former business partner and a legal secretary who had filed a sexual harassment complaint against him. The next morning, my phone rang with a call from an unknown local number. The woman on the other end introduced herself as Susan Chen, a private investigator who had been hired by Brooke 3 months before her death. Susan explained that Brooke had become suspicious of Marcus's business dealings and wanted evidence for a potential divorce. What Susan had uncovered was far worse than marital problems. "Your sister stumbled onto something big," Susan said, her voice tense with urgency. "Marcus has been embezzling money from his own clients using fake real estate transactions to launder cash for some very dangerous people. Brooke found bank records and emails that could send him to prison for decades. She was planning to turn everything over to federal authorities when she died. But Susan had more shocking news. The preliminary DNA results she had obtained through her contacts in the medical field suggested that Marcus was definitely not Emma's father. More surprising, the genetic markers indicated that I might be the biological father, which seemed impossible until Susan explained the fertility clinic connection. "Brooke was having trouble conceiving," Susan continued. "She underwent fertility treatments at Dallas Reproductive Medicine last year. The clinic offers a family donor program where relatives can provide genetic material for artificial insemination. According to the records, I found Brooke specifically requested you as the donor using your full name and social security number from old family documents. I was stunned into silence. The clinic must have contacted me at some point, but I had never received any communication about being a sperm donor. Susan explained that many fertility clinics use coded reference systems to protect donor privacy, meaning I might have received documents that did not clearly explain what I was being asked to participate in. Emma's green eyes suddenly made perfect sense. She was not just my niece, she was my daughter. That afternoon, my parents arrived at my hotel without warning. 8 years of silence ended with an awkward knock on my door. Robert looked older and frailer than I remembered, his once thick hair now completely gray, and his shoulders stooped with age. Linda appeared nervous and fidgety, clutching her purse like a shield as she avoided making eye contact with me. The reunion was painful and strained. They barely acknowledged Emma, focusing instead on their own problems. Robert explained that they had lost most of their retirement savings in a bad investment scheme and were struggling to pay for their assisted living facility in Phoenix. The truth about their motivation became clear when Linda admitted that Marcus had promised them a substantial payment to convince me to take custody of Emma and disappear. He said he would give us $100,000 if we could get you to sign away any legal claims to the baby. Linda confessed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We are desperate, Warren. We cannot afford our medical bills, and the facility is threatening to evict us." For the first time in my adult life, my parents admitted that they had never treated me fairly. Robert broke down crying as he acknowledged favoring Brooke throughout our childhood, while Linda confessed that she had always found me more difficult to connect with because I reminded her of her own father who had abandoned their family when she was young. "We know we failed you," Robert said, his voice cracking with emotion. "We were young and stupid parents who made terrible mistakes. But we need your help now, and that baby needs a family. Can you find it in your heart to forgive us?" Their confession was interrupted by a call from Jessica Martinez with devastating news. Marcus's legal team had filed an emergency motion for custody, claiming I was an unfit guardian due to what they called an unstable employment history and mental health issues. They had somehow obtained fabricated medical records suggesting I had been treated for depression and anxiety, along with false employment documents claiming I had been fired from multiple jobs for erratic behavior. The court date was set for the following week. If I lost, Emma would be placed in Marcus's custody permanently, despite the DNA evidence proving he was not her father. Jessica warned me that Marcus had extensive connections throughout the Dallas legal system and could afford the best attorneys money could buy. That evening, I used the key Brooke had mentioned to access her safety deposit box at a downtown bank. Inside, I found a treasure trove of evidence that revealed the scope of Marcus's criminal enterprise. Bank statements showed millions of dollars flowing through offshore accounts. Email printouts detailed meetings with known money launderers. Photographs showed Marcus meeting with suspicious individuals in parking garages and hotel rooms. Most damaging were the recorded phone conversations Brooke had stored on encrypted drives. In one call, Marcus discussed eliminating a witness who was threatening to expose his operation. In another, he bragged about making previous problems disappear permanently. My sister had uncovered proof that Marcus was not just a white-collar criminal, but a dangerous man who had killed multiple people to protect his secrets. The final item in the safety deposit box was a letter addressed to federal law enforcement written in Brooke's careful handwriting. She had been planning to turn state's evidence against Marcus and enter witness protection with Emma. Her death had not been a random accident. It had been a calculated murder to silence the one person who could destroy Marcus's criminal empire. The next morning, I contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division in Dallas and was connected to Special Agent Patricia Rodriguez, a sharp woman in her 30s, who took Brooke's evidence very seriously. It turned out that Marcus had already been under federal investigation for possible money laundering, but they had lacked the inside information needed to build a solid case. Brooke's recordings and documents provided exactly what they needed to obtain search warrants and freeze his assets. Agent Rodriguez arranged to meet me at a secure location where I turned over copies of everything Brooke had hidden. She confirmed that the federal investigation had been ongoing for 6 months, triggered by suspicious cash transactions reported by several banks. Marcus's real estate company was suspected of being a front for laundering money from drug trafficking and human trafficking operations along the Mexican border. Your sister was incredibly brave, Agent Rodriguez told me as she reviewed the evidence. This information could save countless lives and shut down a major criminal network, but it also puts you and the baby in serious danger. Marcus will do anything to keep this information from becoming public. Susan Chen agreed to work pro bono, determined to see justice for Brooke. Together, we contacted David Parker, one of Dallas's top family law attorneys, who agreed to represent me using the money I had saved for a down payment on a larger house. The legal fees would drain my savings, but Emma was worth any sacrifice. Meanwhile, my parents surprised me by stepping up in ways I had never expected. Linda spent hours researching childcare and baby supplies, using her computer skills to find the best prices and safety ratings. Robert offered to put their Phoenix house up as collateral for additional legal fees, despite the financial risk to their own future. "We owe you decades of support," Robert said, his voice steady with newfound determination. "Let us help you fight this battle. That little girl deserves better than what we gave you and Brooke." For the first time since childhood, I felt like my parents actually cared about my well-being. Linda broke down crying as she apologized for years of emotional neglect, admitting that she had always known their treatment was unfair, but had been too proud to change course. Robert acknowledged that his favoritism toward Brooke had been rooted in his own insecurities about being a good father, and he had found it easier to praise her simple achievements than to challenge me to reach my full potential. But Marcus was not going to give up without a fight. His intimidation tactics escalated when he discovered I had been gathering evidence against him. 2 men in expensive suits appeared at my hotel, claiming to be private investigators hired to conduct a background check for the custody case. Their questions quickly turned threatening, with subtle hints about what could happen to people who interfered with powerful men's business interests. That night, I was forced to relocate Emma and myself to a safe house arranged by Agent Rodriguez after hotel security cameras captured suspicious individuals watching our room. The safe house was a modest suburban home in Plano, guarded by federal agents who took shifts monitoring the perimeter. Despite the danger, community support began to build around our story. Brooke's former neighbors came forward with testimonies about Marcus's abusive behavior, describing loud arguments and seeing Brooke with unexplained bruises. Several of Marcus's business clients discovered they had been victims of his embezzlement schemes and filed civil lawsuits demanding restitution. The local news picked up the story after a reporter learned about the custody battle through court filings. The narrative of a single uncle fighting a wealthy criminal to protect his orphaned niece resonated with viewers, and a crowdfunding campaign raised over $200,000 for legal expenses within 72 hours. But Marcus had one more card to play. Using his connections in the Dallas Police Department, he filed criminal charges claiming I had kidnapped Emma from her legal guardian. I was arrested at the safe house and spent 6 terrifying hours in jail before Agent Rodriguez could intervene with federal authorities to have the charges dropped. The arrest was designed to make me look unstable and dangerous before the custody hearing. Marcus's strategy was becoming clear. He would use every tool at his disposal to discredit me while presenting himself as Emma's only stable option, despite the DNA evidence proving he was not her biological father. As I sat in the jail cell holding a photo of Emma that Linda had given me, I realized this was about more than just custody of one baby. This was a test of whether justice could prevail against wealth and corruption. Marcus had killed my sister to protect his criminal empire, and now he was trying to claim her daughter as a trophy. I was the only person standing between Emma and a monster who had already proven he would kill to protect his secrets. That night, Agent Rodriguez called with news that changed everything. Federal wiretaps had captured Marcus discussing his plans to eliminate me permanently if the custody case did not go his way. The FBI had been recording his phone calls for weeks as part of their money laundering investigation, and they had evidence of Marcus arranging for my murder. "We need to move quickly," Agent Rodriguez explained. "Marcus is planning something for tomorrow right before the custody hearing. He thinks if you disappear, Emma will automatically become his ward and he can make her disappear too. We cannot let that happen." The trap was set. Federal agents would be positioned throughout the courthouses during the custody hearing, ready to arrest Marcus the moment he made any threatening moves. Meanwhile, David Parker had prepared a devastating case using Brooke's evidence and the DNA results proving I was Emma's biological father. The custody hearing would become the final showdown in a battle between justice and corruption. The morning of the custody hearing arrived with unseasonably cold weather for Dallas, as if the universe was reflecting the gravity of what was about to unfold. I arrived at the courthouse wearing my best suit, with Emma dressed in a tiny pink outfit that Linda had bought for her. My parents flanked me on either side, providing moral support I never thought I would receive from them again. The courtroom was packed with reporters, social workers, and supporters who had followed our story through the media coverage. Judge Patricia Williams, a stern woman in her 50s with a reputation for fairness, presided over the proceedings with obvious concern for Emma's welfare. Marcus arrived with a team of 3 expensive attorneys, looking confident and composed, despite the federal investigation swirling around him. He had somehow managed to conceal his legal troubles from the family court, presenting himself as a successful businessman who wanted to honor his late wife's memory by caring for her child. His lead attorney, a silver-tongued man named Charles Bradford, began by painting a picture of Marcus as a grieving widower who had discovered his wife's infidelity but was willing to forgive and provide for the child anyway. Bradford presented the fabricated mental health records and employment documents, arguing that I was an unstable bachelor with no experience caring for children. "Mr. Wellington has the financial resources to provide this child with the best education, health care, and opportunities money can buy," Bradford argued. "Mr. Matthews works long hours in a demanding job and has no support system. He cannot possibly provide the stable home environment this baby deserves." Judge Williams listened impassively as Bradford described my supposed history of job instability and psychological problems. The fake evidence was convincing enough that I began to worry about the outcome, despite knowing the documents were fabricated. Then it was David Parker's turn. My attorney systematically dismantled Marcus's case by presenting the DNA evidence proving I was Emma's biological father through the fertility clinic donor program. He played audio recordings of Marcus threatening Brooke and making cruel comments about Emma being a burden he wanted to eliminate. "Your Honor, this is not a case about providing financial advantages," Parker argued. "This is about protecting an innocent child from a dangerous criminal who killed her mother to silence her testimony about his illegal activities." The courtroom erupted when Parker presented Brooke's hidden camera footage showing Marcus pushing her while she held Emma. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as people witnessed the violence that had preceded Brooke's suspicious death. Judge Williams called for order as Marcus's attorneys objected frantically to the evidence. But Parker had followed all proper legal procedures for introducing the recordings and videos, having obtained court approval the previous day through emergency motions. My parents took the witness stand to testify about their past mistakes and their commitment to supporting Emma and me. Linda broke down crying as she described years of favoritism and emotional neglect, begging the court to let them make amends by helping raise their granddaughter properly. Warren was always the better son. Linda testified, her voice shaking with emotion. We were terrible parents who punished him for being responsible and intelligent. We know we do not deserve his forgiveness, but that baby deserves to grow up with people who love her unconditionally. Robert's testimony was equally powerful as he acknowledged specific incidents of favoritism and explained how they had chosen Brooke's side during family conflicts without considering Warren's feelings. The courtroom was silent as this elderly man took full responsibility for destroying his relationship with his son through years of differential treatment. Just as Judge Williams was preparing to hear closing arguments, Agent Rodriguez entered the courtroom with a team of federal agents. They approached Marcus with an arrest warrant, their presence creating chaos among the spectators and attorneys. Marcus Wellington, you are under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Agent Rodriguez announced loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear. Marcus's facade of respectability crumbled as federal agents handcuffed him in front of dozens of witnesses. His attorneys tried to object and delay the arrest, but Agent Rodriguez had coordinated with Judge Williams beforehand to ensure the timing would not interfere with Emma's custody determination. With Marcus in custody, Judge Williams immediately granted me full legal custody of Emma, along with a permanent restraining order preventing Marcus or his associates from contacting either of us. The judge also ordered child support payments from Marcus's frozen assets, ensuring Emma would have financial security regardless of his criminal conviction. Mr. Matthews, Judge Williams said, looking directly at me, it is clear that you are this child's biological father and her best hope for a loving, stable home. I am confident that you will provide the care and protection she needs. The courtroom erupted in applause as I held Emma close, tears streaming down my cheeks. After months of fear and uncertainty, justice had finally prevailed. My parents embraced us both, completing a family reconciliation I had never thought possible. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us, asking for comments about the dramatic arrest and custody victory. I kept my statement brief, focusing on Emma's future rather than Marcus's crimes. This was never about money or revenge, I told the cameras. This was about protecting an innocent baby and honoring her mother's memory. Emma will grow up knowing that her mom was a hero who died trying to do the right thing. David Parker announced that Marcus's business assets would be liquidated to compensate fraud victims with a substantial trust fund established for Emma's education and future needs. The federal charges carried a potential sentence of 20 years to life in prison, ensuring Marcus would never again threaten Emma's safety. As we walked away from the courthouse, Emma reached up and grabbed my finger with her tiny hand. In that moment, I knew that every sacrifice and struggle had been worth it to give her the loving family she deserved. 6 months after the custody victory, life had settled into a peaceful routine that felt almost surreal compared to the chaos of the previous year. I had moved back to Austin, with Emma purchasing a larger house in a family-friendly neighborhood with excellent schools. The federal government's compensation fund for Marcus's victims had provided Emma with a substantial trust fund, but more importantly, she was surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. Marcus's federal trial had concluded with a conviction on all charges, resulting in a 25-year prison sentence without possibility of parole. Additional evidence discovered during the investigation linked him to the suspicious deaths of 4 other women who had threatened to expose his criminal activities. Civil lawsuits from defrauded clients had stripped away his remaining assets, ensuring he could never again use wealth to intimidate or harm innocent people. My testimony during the trial had been emotionally difficult but necessary for achieving justice. I described Marcus's threats against Emma and me helping prosecutors establish a pattern of intimidation and violence that supported the murder charges related to Brooke's death. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The most surprising development had been the complete transformation of my relationship with my parents. Robert and Linda had sold their house in Phoenix, and moved to a senior living community in Cedar Park, just 20 minutes from my new home. They had become devoted grandparents who spent several days each week helping care for Emma and supporting my adjustment to single parenthood. Family therapy had been crucial for addressing decades of dysfunction and establishing healthy boundaries for our future relationship. Dr. Sarah Martinez, our counselor, helped my parents understand how their favoritism had damaged both their children and guided us through difficult conversations about specific incidents from my childhood. Healing generational trauma requires acknowledging the specific ways harm was caused, Dr. Martinez explained during one of our sessions. Robert and Linda need to understand exactly how their choices affected Warren, and Warren needs to feel heard and validated before forgiveness becomes possible. The therapy process had been painful, but ultimately liberating. My parents took full responsibility for their mistakes without making excuses or minimizing the damage they had caused. Robert started volunteering with a local organization that helped disadvantaged children, saying he wanted to become the supportive father figure he had never been to me. Linda threw herself into grandmother duties with an enthusiasm that surprised everyone. She learned to change diapers, prepare bottles, and read bedtime stories with the patience and nurturing she had never shown during my childhood. Watching her gentle interactions with Emma helped me understand that people could change when they truly committed to doing better. My career had also flourished following the media attention from our story. Several Austin tech companies had offered me positions with family-friendly benefits, flexible schedules, and excellent childcare options. I chose to join a startup that was developing educational software for children feeling inspired to contribute to products that would help other kids succeed academically. The single father support group I joined had become an important source of friendship and practical advice. Meeting other men who were raising children alone helped me realize that Emma and I were not facing unique challenges, and their experiences guided me through the steep learning curve of infant care. Most unexpectedly, I had begun a romantic relationship with Sarah Collins, a pediatric nurse I met during one of Emma's checkups. Sarah adored Emma and brought a warmth and joy into our lives that felt natural and comfortable. She had been raised by a single father herself and understood the challenges and rewards of non-traditional family structures. Emma was thriving in our loving environment, showing early signs of intelligence and curiosity that reminded me daily of Brooke's sharp mind. She had begun sleeping through the night, smiling frequently, and showing strong attachment to the people who cared for her consistently. Her nursery was decorated with photos honoring Brooke's memory, ensuring Emma would grow up knowing about her mother's courage and sacrifice. The community support that had rallied around our story during the custody battle had evolved into lasting friendships and professional relationships. Many of the people who had contributed to our legal defense fund had become regular visitors who considered themselves part of Emma's extended family. But the most meaningful discovery came through a letter I received from the adoption agency that had handled Brooke's fertility treatments. The letter revealed that Brooke had been secretly searching for ways to reconnect with me for years before her pregnancy, wanting to rebuild our sibling relationship, but afraid to contact me directly because of our parents' continued hostility. Ms. Matthews contacted our clinic multiple times asking about family donor programs, the letter explained. She specifically requested information about using her brother as a genetic donor, saying she wanted her child to have the best possible father figure. Her choice was deliberate and carefully considered. This revelation helped me understand that Emma's existence was not an accident or coincidence, but rather Brooke's final gift to both of us. She had found a way to ensure her daughter would have the loving, stable parent she had always wished she could have herself. Even in death, Brooke had managed to bring healing to our fractured family. The scholarship fund I established in Brooke's memory had already helped dozens of young people from dysfunctional families attend college and pursue their dreams. Her story had inspired other abuse victims to come forward and seek help, leading to additional arrests and convictions of wealthy predators who had thought their money made them untouchable. Emma's first birthday party was held in my backyard, surrounded by the chosen family we had built together. Sarah helped coordinate the celebration while my parents doted on their granddaughter, and our neighbors provided food and entertainment. Watching Emma laugh and play in a safe, loving environment, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this moment. As I tucked Emma into her crib that night, I whispered the same promise I had made every day since bringing her home. Your mama was the bravest person I ever knew, and you are going to grow up surrounded by people who love you exactly as you are. The cycle of neglect ends with me, sweetheart. The legacy of love begins with you. 1 year after our custody victory, I stood in the kitchen of our Austin home watching Sarah help my parents prepare Emma's second birthday celebration. The sight of 4 adults working together to create a perfect day for one special little girl still amazed me, considering how broken and scattered our family had been just 2 years earlier. Emma toddled around the living room babbling happily as she explored her birthday decorations. She had inherited Brooke's curiosity and my stubborn determination, creating a personality that was uniquely her own. Her first clear word had been "Dada," and nothing in my life had ever felt more perfect than hearing her call my name. The justice system had delivered complete accountability for Marcus's crimes. His 25-year federal sentence ensured he would spend the rest of his productive life in prison, while civil judgments had stripped him of every asset he had accumulated through fraud and intimidation. The compensation fund for his victims had distributed over $50 million to people he had cheated, with Emma receiving the largest settlement to secure her financial future. More importantly, the investigation had exposed an entire network of wealthy criminals who had used legitimate businesses as fronts for money laundering and human trafficking. Brooke's evidence had led to 17 additional arrests and convictions, dismantling operations that had exploited vulnerable people throughout the Southwest. Her courage had saved countless lives and brought justice to families who had never expected to see their loved ones' deaths avenged. The transformation of my parents continued to amaze everyone who knew our history. Robert had become a dedicated volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters, mentoring disadvantaged boys who reminded him of the son he had failed to support properly. His work had given him perspective on the importance of consistent encouragement and unconditional love in a child's development. Linda had returned to college at age 68 to study early childhood development, determined to understand the psychology behind healthy parenting. She applied her new knowledge to her relationship with Emma, providing the nurturing grandmother experience she had never offered me or Brooke. Her transformation was so complete that our family therapist often used our case as an example of successful generational healing. My relationship with Sarah had deepened into an engagement with wedding plans that included Emma as the flower girl. Sarah's medical background and natural parenting instincts complemented my analytical approach to child rearing, creating a partnership that felt both romantic and practical. Emma had bonded with Sarah, immediately reaching for her during bedtime routines and crying when she left after visits. The professional success that had grown from our story's media coverage had exceeded my expectations. The educational software company I had joined was developing innovative programs to help children from troubled backgrounds succeed academically. My experience as both a survivor of family dysfunction and a protective father brought unique insights to our product's design and implementation. The scholarship foundation established in Brooke's memory had grown into a national organization supporting hundreds of young people annually. Recipients were selected based on their determination to break cycles of abuse and neglect in their own families, ensuring Brooke's legacy would continue empowering future generations. Many scholarship recipients stayed in touch, sharing stories of their academic and professional achievements that honored her sacrifice. Emma's development continued to exceed every milestone, confirming that love and stability could overcome even the most traumatic family origins. She showed no signs of the anxiety or attachment issues that often affected children who had experienced early trauma. Her sunny disposition and easy laughter reflected the security she felt in our carefully constructed family environment. The blog I had started to help other estranged family members navigate reconciliation had attracted thousands of readers seeking guidance for similar situations. Many people shared stories of childhood favoritism and emotional neglect that mirrored my own experiences, finding comfort in knowing they were not alone in their struggles. The online community had evolved into real-world support groups in major cities across the country. Brooke's pregnancy journals had been published as a memoir titled Finding Courage: One Mother's Fight for Justice, with proceeds supporting domestic violence shelters and legal aid organizations. Her story had inspired legislative changes strengthening penalties for wealthy defendants who used intimidation tactics against witnesses, ensuring future victims would have better protection from powerful abusers. But the most meaningful victory was the simple, daily reality of Emma's life. She woke up every morning in a home where she was cherished and protected. She had grandparents who spoiled her appropriately, a stepmother who read her bedtime stories, and a father who would never let anyone make her question her worth. The dysfunction that had poisoned 3 generations of our family had finally ended with her. As we gathered around Emma's birthday cake, watching her clap excitedly at the 2 candles, I reflected on the profound lesson our journey had taught me. Sometimes the greatest gift is not being born into a loving family, but having the strength and determination to create one. Emma had saved me as much as I had saved her healing wounds I had carried since childhood and giving my life a purpose greater than any professional achievement. The parents who had abandoned me for 8 years had taught me exactly what kind of father never to become, while Brooke's final sacrifice had shown me what unconditional love really meant. Every mistake and disappointment from my past had prepared me to recognize and protect the precious gift Emma represented. True family, I had learned, is not determined by biology or obligation, but by the daily choice to love and protect each other through any storm. The cycle of neglect and favoritism ended with me, and the legacy of unconditional love began with Emma. She would never doubt whether she was wanted, valued, or cherished, because every day of her life would provide evidence of how deeply she was loved. As Emma fell asleep in my arms that night, surrounded by the gentle sounds of Sarah and my parents cleaning up from the party, I whispered my nightly promise with more gratitude than ever before. Sweet dreams, my brave little girl. Your mama's courage lives on in you, and you will always be surrounded by people who love you exactly as you are. Looking toward the future, I knew there would be challenges ahead as Emma grew older and began asking questions about her mother's death and her biological origins. But I also knew we had built a foundation of love and honesty strong enough to weather any storm. The family that had been broken by secrets and lies would raise Emma with transparency and unconditional support. The greatest tribute to Brooke's memory was not the legal victories or financial settlements, but the simple fact that her daughter would grow up knowing she was cherished beyond measure. In saving Emma from Marcus's corruption and our family's dysfunction, we had all discovered the healing power of choosing love over resentment, courage over fear, and hope over despair. I want to ask you something important. Have you ever had to choose between holding on to past hurts or opening your heart to healing and forgiveness? The journey Emma and I shared taught me that sometimes the people who hurt us the most can become our greatest allies when they commit to real change. Family reconciliation is never easy, but it can transform lives in ways we never thought possible. If our story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message of hope and healing. Your support helps these stories reach people who are struggling with their own family challenges and need to know they are not alone. I would love to hear about your own experiences with family healing or protecting the people you love in the comments below. Every story of courage and transformation helps build a community of support for others facing similar battles. Please subscribe to this channel for more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary strength in the face of life's greatest challenges. Together we can remind each other that no matter how broken our past might be, we always have the power to create a better future for the people we love. Thank you for listening to Emma's story and mine. May you always have the courage to fight for what matters most, and may you find the peace that comes from choosing love over fear. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people who matter most to you.